Selling a family home can be extraordinarily difficult. You have memories of growing up there, or maybe you raised children there. You've had birthday parties and holidays and family gatherings. And whether you're downsizing or your parent is going into a nursing home or they passed away, there are things that are going to make it difficult to say goodbye. So I wanted to chat with you about what no one may be telling you about selling your family home and maybe offer some advice to ease that transition when it's time to move on. So the first thing I want to chat with you about is the emotional roller coaster. This is tough. You think you're ready. You call your real estate agent and you're going to get the process started and sign the papers and put it on the market. And then you realize you haven't properly gone through the grieving period. Because when you're selling a home that you've been emotionally attached to for years, there is a process that you have to go through. You grieve to the loss of that home because that's the home where you have memories. And I have seen this a lot over the last several decades that I've been in this industry, helping a lot of families go through this process, that a lot of people underestimate that emotional weight. I think it's harder on the children than it is on the parents to let go of homes. I've had this discussion with my kids. I've been in my home for over 25 years, and now that they're getting older, I have started to entertain the idea of selling the house after they've gone off and find their own homes, and that it'll be time for me to leave and find another home. And that process for them is hard. That's very uncomfortable for them to say, well, this is where they spent their entire life. My parents have been in their house for over 40 years and they're still alive, but at some point in time, we're going to have to say goodbye to that house. And having that emotional preparedness is crucial, is absolutely crucial, because if you don't, the consequence is that you go through that process, you start having buyers come through the house and they're traipsing through the living room, and it's where you celebrate holidays and birthday parties. They start saying, oh, I'm going to change this, I'm going to change that, or this is wrong, or that is wrong. And that is emotionally taxing. And sometimes people will start doubting whether this is the right thing to do. They have regret that they're doing this, that maybe we should just cancel the whole thing and hold on to the house. So how do you navigate that? And what I tell my clients, and what I will tell my children and my siblings, is that you need to focus on why you're here. Focus on the reason that you're doing that. If you're downsizing, you have to focus on where you're going. If you are, mom and dad are going into a nursing home or they've passed, financially, who's going to take responsibility of the house? It doesn't make sense to hold on to it from a business perspective. Are you holding on to it because it's an emotional security blanket, or does it really just not make sense? So you have to really clearly define what the reasons are for selling it, and then you build in some coping mechanisms, as they like to call the kids say these days. I need coping mechanisms. You need coping mechanisms when you're selling the house. And what do I mean by that? Well, one thing that you can do is you can walk through the house, take a ton of pictures. Now, I'm not talking about the pictures for the real estate marketing and all that stuff. I'm talking about pictures of every nook and cranny. If there's a mark on the wall that sparks a memory, you need to take a picture of that. You need to take a picture of the outside. You need to take a picture of, this is where I fell and skinned my knee when I was a kid. All of those pictures will be priceless. That will be the thing that is your anchor when the house is sold, because you can fall back on that, because in reality, those memories don't disappear. The memories are not in the house. The house is exactly that. It's four walls and a roof. And if you have those memories documented, then you're not leaving them at the home, you're taking them with you. Now, the next thing I want to chat with you about is family dynamics and disagreements. This can be tough. If you have family members that are not on the same page, if some are more pragmatic and some are more sentimental and have attachment to either the house itself or things within the house, that can be a sticky process. It can make that grieving process of letting that house go even more difficult. And I've seen this a ton, whether it be disagreements over how the proceeds are handled, or the timing, or selection of the real estate agent, or when the house should be put on the market, or even how do we deal with the stuff that's in the house. All of those situations could happen with, if you have family members that are at odds, that have a disagreement. So how do you avoid that? Communication. And then that's not as easy as it sounds. And I'm not suggesting that that's all you need to have in order to make this problem go away. Absolutely not. 100% absolutely not. Now, if you're dealing with a situation that, your parent has passed, I strongly recommend that you try, if prior to them passing, try to make sure that they have a will. If you have a will that makes it substantially easier with an executrix on that will to be the point person to be the decision maker, and that person understands to take everyone's needs into consideration. But if it's not a situation where the parent has passed, then you need to try to be patient with each other, which is not easy in itself, and try to meet each other where you're at. If it's a matter of the items in the house, then if you're in a disagreement with what it needs to happen with it, then maybe you put it in storage, you deal with it another day. You deal with it another day that you're not so emotionally charged. You don't have to make a decision on every last item in the house right then and there. A lot of people fall into that, say, well, we have to purge now. We have all these things. What the heck are we going to do with them? And oftentimes, it's better to just, yes, maybe you pay for a storage unit temporarily, until you can figure that out. Maybe that's the best course of action instead of rushing into a decision and then having even more friction with the process. If you're disagreeing with proceeds, or how to handle the money, or how to proceed with actually selling the house, and you just can't seem to come to a decision, maybe consider hiring a mediator. Might be an option. If you have, the emotions are charged such that you just can't come to an agreement, then maybe a mediator, an outside mediator, is the answer. I will tell you that, oftentimes, being a real estate agent that has seen and gone through this many times before, and having to counsel my clients through this process, having a skilled real estate agent could be the thing that saves you on this, going through that process. Having an agent that has been there, done that is familiar and recognizes the grieving that you're doing, that recognizes that some of the family members are pragmatic and some are emotionally attached, and can help bridge that gap. A good real estate agent will 100% be able to guide you through that. I have done that time and time again. This is what an agent does. This is what I always considered my job to do, is to help people. It's not just to get the house on the market, get it sold, get a check. It is to help people. And sometimes, having that experiential knowledge to say, okay, this is what other clients have done, make suggestions, could make the biggest difference in the process of trying to just get to the next step and get the process going. Now, how do you find that agent if you don't already have one? I can help you with that, because I have a network over the last 25 plus years that I've been in this industry, and I have put together a network of agents that I trust, that do business the same way that I do. So if you need a recommendation, a referral for an agent, click the link and they'll connect you with one of those agents. Interview 3 agents. I talk a lot about that on this channel. Interview at least 3 agents, but get yourself a skilled agent that will help you through that process. Now, another thing that you may not be prepared for are the hidden costs of selling your family home. I ran into this just the other day. I met with a new client that was referred to me. He has a beach cottage that he's had in his family for over 60 years. Mom passed away several years ago. Dad is sick. And he and his family decided it was time to say goodbye. And I met with him, to go over what would need to happen, what his options are to sell the home, things like septic system and smoke detectors and whatnot. And some of these items could get and will get a little expensive, and it will be part of the process and it won't derail the process, but it is going to take longer than he anticipated. Now, if you're in a situation where you have mom and dad just passed away, you have to settle the estate rather quickly, and you don't have time to prepare, then sometimes that will happen. But there are situations where you may have time to do some investigation prior to. Capital gains is another hidden cost that sneaks up on people. If you have a home that has appreciated substantially, which we've seen over the last 4 or 5 years, you may have some hidden capital gains costs. Now, I am not a CPA, so I will not get into details about capital gains because it is very, very specific to your individual financial situation. How you file your tax return, will determine, what, if anything, you're going to be liable for to pay for capital gains. So, hidden costs like repairs and updates. If you have a home that is maybe has had some deferred maintenance on the home, or maybe it needs some updates. It's a very outdated property. It served your family well, but it needs some love. Those types of updates, that type of expense, could be something that you're just emotionally not ready to take on. So how do you navigate that? Well, one thing you can do is you can get a pre-inspection, which is a home inspection before you put the house on the market. And that way you'll know what repairs need to be made, what deferred maintenance items need to be done, and then you can decide what should be done, what will be done, and what won't be done based on what your situation is. The other thing you can do is consult with a CPA or tax professional. Find out what your tax liability is, if there is any at all, because it is dependent on your particular situation. But have that conversation ahead of time so you know exactly what to be prepared for, so you don't have any surprises. Now, as you're getting the house ready to go on the market, there are some things that you want to keep an eye out for when you're navigating the selling process. And the first thing has to do with pricing. There is a big difference between emotional value and pragmatic value, data-driven value. And it's almost impossible to separate yourself when you're emotionally attached, when you have emotional attachment to the home, the memories that are in that home. It is natural to attach emotional value to that home. That home is better than the neighbors, even though it's identical in every way, But this is your home. You painted your bedroom, or you updated the bathroom, or your dad built the deck. All of those things in your mind are going to carry emotional value weight. And the reality of it is an average buyer likely will not, because that buyer doesn't have that same emotional attachment to the house as you do. And this is where I think a skilled agent will act as a guide, as a mediator, as an advisor, to make sure that you focus on the data, because that is what is going to determine what gets the house sold. The emotional attachment, the emotional value that's placed on a home is often why a house sits and doesn't sell, because that home is overpriced. And now that's going to, the house is going to stay on the market longer. And if you're already having, the challenge and the difficulty, you're struggling with selling this home to begin with, the last thing you want to do is to stretch it out longer than it needs to be. So listening to that agent, also doing your own diligence. I talk a lot about that on this channel, is making sure you advocate for yourself and doing your own research, making sure that agent just isn't telling you the data, but actually showing you what that value is. But when they show you, listen, Try to listen. If you have family members that don't agree with the pricing, have the family members listen to the agent. Have the family members see the data, see the reports, get them in on the process, and so they can understand. Oftentimes I feel that stress and miscommunication is as a result, or any kind of conflict is as a result of miscommunication, not enough information. The more information you can provide, the more that conflict will oftentimes be released. So be on the lookout for that. Be prepared for that. The other thing is repairs. Do you sell it as is, or do you repair the house? And I think looking at that, and again, leaning into your agent to know whether those repairs actually will make a difference. I think that's important. I don't know how many times I've had situations where, I've had clients say that, they feel a sense of pride, that they, if their parent has passed or whatnot, they don't want to present the house that way. They want to make sure the house looks its best in the best light, when in actuality, the money spent on those repairs doesn't help this house sell any faster. It doesn't help it sell for any more money. So you really don't need to do them. Listen to the guidance of a skilled agent who knows the local market to determine whether, anything at all should be done to the house. And then lastly, when you get into situations with negotiation, and this is another, tripping point that a lot of folks go through, is when you have a buyer come in and make a lowball offer. If the house has been on the market for maybe a little longer than it should be in the current market, and a buyer brings in a lower offer, which is natural to do so, you become a little bit put out. And oftentimes the negotiation standpoint will be more of an emotional response than a pragmatic response. Be aware of that, because sometimes, responding emotionally, and this is part of what I do is as service to my clients, is guide them on their decision making, because I've had this happen so many times, more than I can count, where I'll have a seller that responds emotionally and from a business standpoint doesn't make any sense. They'll say, no, let's not do this. But they really don't have a good reason, but it's all driven from here as opposed to here. And I'll need to remind them why they're selling. Remind them, how many offers do we have, what the current market situation is, what the data shows on the price, all the reasons, why maybe what the buyer's asking for is not unreasonable. So being aware of that, might help you get through that process, because the last thing you want is to scare a buyer away or miss an opportunity. You don't want to miss an opportunity with a buyer, that might disappear, come back and make a lower offer, a few weeks later. So it's something that is a tough road to navigate. But if you lean into the experience of an outside source like your agent, a trusted advisor, to help you with the data-driven decisions, you'll end up having a less stressful process. My final thoughts are this: whenever possible, plan ahead. Have the conversations with your sibling, with your family members before you need to have the conversation. I've been talking to my siblings for some time about what to do with the stuff in my parents' house, and my parents are alive and well. Hopefully they'll be around for many years to come. But when that day comes that they do pass, we will have already started the conversation. And the other thing is to not do this alone. Don't go at this alone. Have someone, a trusted advisor, by your side. Now, yes, I'm a real estate agent, and I believe in a good real estate agent. But a bad real estate agent, no. Don't waste your time. They're not going to help you. But a good real estate agent, an agent that has been there before, has experience with helping people that have been in your particular situation, is worth its weight in gold. So make sure you have that trusted advisor by your side. Now, if you want more content like this, you're going to want to check out these videos. I'm Jen Sylvester. I'm here to help you be a savvy home seller.